Good evening, and welcome to our deep dive into the latest developments in the Middle East. Today, we focus on a milestone that many feared might never come: the recovery of the last confirmed hostage held in Gaza. This singular event has sent shockwaves through the diplomatic corridors of the world. For months, the status of this individual remained a central point of contention in every negotiation. Now, with the confirmation of their recovery, the dynamic of the entire conflict has shifted instantaneously. We are looking at a landscape where the primary leverage point for the ongoing hostilities has been removed, leaving both sides at a critical crossroads. In this episode, we will unpack the immediate chaos surrounding the ceasefire talks and investigate what this means for the millions of lives hanging in the balance. Is this the beginning of a true peace, or just the eye of the storm? The details surrounding the recovery mission are still emerging, but military sources describe a high-stakes operation conducted in the early hours of the morning. Intelligence suggests the location was identified within a complex subterranean network in southern Gaza. This operation was not just a tactical success, but a deeply emotional moment for the recovery teams involved. For 300 days, the search for these individuals has defined the military strategy of the region. The discovery of the final hostage concludes a specific chapter of the military campaign, yet it opens a Pandora's box of political questions. How was this location missed previously, and what does the condition of the site tell us about the final days of the hostages' captivity? These are the questions now being asked by analysts and families alike as the dust settles on the recovery site. The public reaction within Israel and across the globe has been a mix of profound relief and renewed anger. In Tel Aviv, crowds gathered by the thousands, demanding that the government now pivot entirely toward a permanent ceasefire. The recovery of the final hostage removes the primary justification for continued ground operations in the eyes of many protesters. However, within the government coalition, the rhetoric remains split. Some see this as the time to declare victory and exit, while others argue that the vacuum left behind must be managed with continued force. This internal friction is creating a sense of political chaos as the public's patience wears thin. The families of the hostages, who have been the moral compass of this conflict, are now calling for a full accounting of the transition from recovery to reconstruction. Despite the recovery, the ceasefire remains incredibly fragile. In Doha and Cairo, negotiators are frantically trying to draft a long-term agreement that can withstand the current volatility. The chaos we are seeing stems from the fact that the previous framework was built around hostage exchanges. Without hostages to trade, the price of peace has shifted to more complex issues: border control, demilitarization, and the return of displaced persons. There are reports that a 6-week pause is currently on the table, but the sticking points remain the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim axis. Both sides are hesitant to yield strategic ground out that the humanitarian imperative of the hostages is no longer the primary driver of the clock. This transition period is perhaps the most dangerous phase of the negotiation process to date. While the political world debates, the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains catastrophic. Recent data indicates that over 1.9 million people are currently displaced, living in makeshift shelters that are ill-equipped for the coming months. The recovery of the hostage does not change the fact that the infrastructure of Gaza is nearly non-existent. Over 60% of residential buildings have been damaged or destroyed. Aid agencies are warning that without a permanent ceasefire and a massive influx of supplies, the death toll from disease and malnutrition could soon eclipse the casualties of direct combat. The chaos for the average citizen in Gaza is a daily struggle for water, food, and medicine. The end of the hostage crisis provides a diplomatic window, but for those on the ground, the clock is ticking on a total social collapse. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu finds himself at an unprecedented crossroads. With the hostages no longer a factor, the focus has shifted entirely to his long-term security plan, or lack thereof. His approval ratings have fluctuated wildly, and the pressure from his right-wing coalition partners to maintain a security buffer is clashing with the international demand for a Palestinian governance solution. The what happens next for the Israeli government likely involves a massive investigation into the failures of October 7th, which many believe will be triggered as soon as a permanent ceasefire is signed. This political survival instinct is a major factor in the current chaos. The question is, will the government choose a path of regional integration or a prolonged military occupation that could last for years? The United States has been a central player in managing the fallout of the recovery. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has made numerous trips to the region in recent weeks, pushing for a day-after plan that involves international peacekeepers and a revitalized Palestinian Authority. The U.S. is particularly concerned that the current chaos could spill over into a wider regional war involving Hezbollah or Iran. With the hostages returned, the Biden administration's leverage has changed. They are now focusing on a grand bargain that includes Saudi normalization. However, the clock is also ticking on the U.S. domestic front with an election looming. The urgency to secure a definitive end to the conflict has never been higher, as the administration seeks a major foreign policy win amidst the surrounding instability. If a ceasefire is finalized, the task of rebuilding Gaza will be one of the largest engineering and humanitarian projects of the 21st century. Preliminary estimates suggest the cost of reconstruction could exceed $40 billion. The sheer scale of debris removal alone is staggering. Millions of tons of rubble, much of it contaminated with unexploded ordnance. International donors are hesitant to commit funds without a clear guarantee that another conflict won't destroy the progress within a few years. This economic chaos is a major hurdle. Who will manage the funds? How will materials like cement and steel be monitored to prevent dual use in tunnels? The transition from a war footing to a construction footing requires a level of international cooperation that we haven't seen in decades. Perhaps the most contentious issue in the what happens next scenario is the question of governance. Hamas's administrative capabilities have been severely degraded, but no clear successor has emerged. The proposal for an international force, possibly led by Arab nations, faces significant resistance from those who don't want to be seen as occupiers. On the other hand, the Palestinian Authority's ability to exert control over Gaza is questioned by many in the Israeli security establishment. This power vacuum is the definition of chaos. Without a clear governance structure, any ceasefire will likely be short-lived. We are looking at a potential transition period where a technocratic government might take the lead, but the path to a sovereign, stable leadership remains obscured by the scars of the past year. As we conclude this update, the recovery of the last hostage marks the end of a tragic chapter, but the story of the region's future is only just beginning to be written. The chaos we see today is the friction of a world trying to pivot from total war to an uncertain peace. The coming weeks will be decisive. Will the leaders in the region and the international community seize this moment of humanitarian finality to forge a lasting settlement? Or will the political and strategic divisions prove too deep to bridge? One thing is certain: the eyes of the world are watching, and the students of history will look back at this moment as the turning point that either saved or further scarred a generation. Thank you for joining us for this special coverage. We will continue to bring you objective, high-quality analysis as events unfold.